It's raining, but we're getting the best views we've had, so, you know, we'll take it. It's awesome.
Florida is a must-visit destination for anyone looking to see interesting bird life. With much of the hype in the state surrounding birds of freshwater wetlands, there are some specific places where viewing the wildlife is easy. One of the hotspots that was most recommended to us was the Lake Apopka area. We made a trip there to find out if it was actually worth the hype.
We're here at the Lake Apopka Wildlife Drive, and unfortunately the drive itself is closed, but we're still able to walk in and see what we can find. One of our big targets is Gray-headed Swamphen here. Ryan had a little blue heron just a second ago, but we're excited to get out of the car and actually see some birds that we can appreciate, not just from the road.
Lake Apopka was one of the places that people recommended we go, and it looks like it definitely is a major hotspot for some of those marsh-dwelling species. And even though it's cold out, we're hoping that they'll still be around for us to find. The biggest attraction at Lake Apopka is the 11-mile wildlife drive. However, the drive is only open to cars Friday through Saturday. So on this cold day, our only option was to walk it and hope the rain held out long enough. Before even getting to the main path, we started finding birds.
Got a great egret, some eastern bluebirds over here, some cedar waxwings. So we're actually finding a lot of species, even though it is pretty overcast today.
Eventually, we made our way over to the gravel drive that would be our search area. Right away, we found an extremely bright southeastern bird species.
We just had one of the most beautiful birds in the United States, a male painted bunting. They're in an assortment of incredible colors that you wouldn't think would go together, but one of the most striking species in the United States. That's a great start to our walk here.
We moved farther along the trail, finding an area where floating plants created a habitat for both wading herons and another species found very readily in freshwater marshes, just not always as out in plain view as these individuals were. I got a common gallinule, which is a species that I've had experiences with in which they're usually kind of skittish. Just sitting out in the open here, I actually got it vocalizing, and then it was stepping on these plants, and the plants were submerging in the water. It was so cool to watch it move. A species that we have in a lot of different states in the US, but it's a real treat to get a close look at a beautiful one like this. Common gallinules have a dark gray body, an even darker colored head, and brown wings. Some field markings to note include their white undertail, white lines on the edges of their wings, and red bill and forehead shield with a yellow tip. These birds, that operate something like a mix between a duck and a rail, can be found year-round in many parts of South America, Mexico, the Caribbean islands, and the southern United States. In summer, they move north into the eastern part of the US, and even reach as far as the most southern parts of Canada. Common gallinules can be found in both freshwater wetlands and brackish salt marshes, as well as other places with relatively shallow water and a lot of vegetation that they can use to conceal themselves. Sometimes they can be shy and hard to spot, instead opting to stay hidden in the reeds. But other times, they are fine with being out in the open. This location definitely proved to be the latter, as these sometimes enigmatic birds were showing very well at extremely close range. Just a short distance away, we noticed another interesting southeastern species that was closer than usual.
This place has been amazing so far. We had a really nice view of an Anhinga, which they also call that the snake bird because sometimes they'll be underwater and you just see their head sticking out. But they don't have the waterproofing on their feathers. They're really good at diving and spearing prey, but then they have to dry their feathers out. So I think because of the rain, that Anhinga is now drying itself out. But stuff is just super close. It doesn't seem like it's bothered by us at all. And it's kind of some species that are more secretive are just out in the open. So this is a real treat so far.
In and around these tightly packed water plants were many different species. Sparrows, warblers, and wading birds all made this habitat their foraging ground, while other species watched from up above on higher perches. Each part of the trail had slightly different habitat. Part of it was more open, shallow water, where pied-billed grebes were swimming, and another part had many ducks and shorebirds. It was in this section that we found one of the most fascinating birds of Florida wetlands, the non-native gray-headed Swamphen.
We just found a couple gray-headed Swamphens. We were scanning this area on the left side over here. It's a little more, looks like cattail marsh compared to open on this side, and I saw something that either looks like a purple gallinule or a Swamphen, so we had a closer look, and it's our Swamphen. So that's awesome. It was starting to rain, so we were feeling a little dicey about staying out here with all our gear, but I'm glad we were able to see these birds. Hopefully we can see them a little closer.
Gray-headed Swamphens have deep purple bodies, with iridescent greenish-blue color on their neck and wings. Their head can be darker in color, but is also sometimes gray as their name would suggest. They have a thick red bill, and a red forehead shield above their bill. Both of these features, in addition to their red legs, separate them from the native purple gallinule that looks similar. Gray-headed Swamphens have adapted very well to habitats created by humans, and can be found in flooded agricultural fields, ditches, drainage ponds, and both natural and man-made wetlands. They tend to walk along the edges of taller vegetation, or on top of floating plants. Their diet consists mostly of plants, such as cattails and sawgrass, and they are known to use their long-toed feet to grasp such food items, in a similar way to how parrots use their feet. In addition to plants, gray-headed Swamphens also eat small animals, from amphibians to mollusks, and have actually been known to take handouts from humans, such as seeds and fruit. While these birds are certainly beautiful, they have great potential to cause problems for native bird species in Florida. Swamphens may look like they belong here, but in reality they're actually a species that originates from southern Asia, and there was a population that established here, started breeding, and now they just live in some parts of southern Florida and central Florida. So it's a species not originally from here, but it is very beautiful and a very unique bird. Now there is some concern that they will displace other species like purple gallinules and common gallinules, because they have been known to be a little bit aggressive toward other birds, but for now it seems like all of these species are sort of getting together in harmony, and it's really cool to be able to see the gray-headed Swamphen in the only place in the United States, Florida, where you can do so. We kept walking as the rain started to fall. A little farther down the trail we got some closer views of birds we had already seen, including a little blue heron, blue-winged teals, and even more gray-headed Swamphens. While we were excitedly watching these gray-headed Swamphens, we noticed that more of them had actually walked onto the gravel road, giving us incredible views, even while the rain continued to fall harder. Well, rain's here.
It's raining, but we're getting the best views we've had, so, we'll take it. It's awesome. There's a pair foraging on the gravel here, and then we had two kind of picking at the vegetation, so I think we might get a little rain on, but I think hopefully it'll be worth it.
After watching the Swamphens for a while at close range, we headed out to make sure we didn't ruin our cameras. On the way back to the car, we found a place to take shelter and reflected on our experience at Lake Apopka's wildlife drive as a whole.
Stopped at this shelter just for a second while that rain is still coming down. But one thing I really liked about this place is it felt like there was a lot of different layers to the wildlife. Like you had the phoebes and the palm warblers hanging out, savanna sparrows kind of flitting around in the shrubs, then back you had ducks, then you had herons and egrets on the sides, then you had the gallinules and the Swamphens, so just a ton of different things to see in this habitat. I really wish we had more time and it was a little better weather out here for us.
From the shelter, we noticed one of the same birds we had seen on our way in.
We saw that Anhinga drying its wings earlier. I doubt it's too happy. It's gonna have to dry off at some other point today. So that's tough for them, but we were saying there's so many fish in here for them, it must be a gold mine.
Eventually, we made it back to the car and moved on to our next stop. Lake Apopka and its wildlife drive proved to be an excellent place to go birding. Multiple species were visible from very close to the trail, and the variety was actually really great. We didn't even make it very far on the path and still had an excellent time. Lake Apopka is a place that could certainly warrant a longer experience there, observing both the birds and the awesome habitat lining the road. But until then, we'll be happy with our experience spotting many Florida bird species and getting our first looks ever at gray-headed Swamphens. If you liked this video, take a look at another one we made from Florida. And as always, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on Badgerland Birding.